The saying, there are those who have and those who will, usually applies to the subject of pilots and gear up landings, but it could apply to SF-50 pilots taking off with the angle of attack vane cover still installed. Welcome to another real world SF-50 flying video. This one is titled, So You Forgot to Remove the AOA Cover. Hello, I'm David Weeks. I've been flying professionally for over 50 years, starting as a CFI, then as a charter pilot in light twins. I spent time as an air ambulance pilot in Swearingen Metro, and I worked as a demonstration pilot for the Learjet factory. I had a 35-year airline career flying the 737-200 and 300, the A320 series, and I retired as a Boeing 787 captain, and I am also a current CFII. I've got over 650 hours in the SF-50, and I'd like to share my SF-50 experiences with you. Now, there may be other YouTube channels that have glitzier production values than this one. I'd like to spend my time writing and teaching about the SF-50, not doing post-production work. So imagine this video as like a hangar chat session between friends. First, I do want to state clearly that the procedures in the Cirrus Vision Jet airplane flight manual are always controlling. This video is not flight instruction. I can tell you that I myself narrowly escaped joining the small group of pilots who have taken off with their AOA cover still installed. I was a very new SF-50 owner, and I was doing one of my first angel flights in my new SF-50. I had two passengers. They both had friends seeing them off. Everybody wanted photos, and I had to do the walk around, load the baggage and people, and pose for photos. So you can guess what happened. I broke my normal routine, and I did not remove the AOA cover at the usual time. So I start up, taxi out, and while still on ground control, hear another aircraft tell ground, "Hey, ground, tell that Cirrus jet there's something red with a flag on the right side of his airplane's nose." That was a classic, "oh shucks," or something that sounds like shucks moment. I knew that I had screwed up big time and the other pilot had saved my bacon. I told the passengers we had to go back to the ramp for a minute. I taxied back to the ramp, opened the upper door, and had a ramp agent remove the cover and hand it to me. I closed up and then taxied back out as though nothing had happened except to my ego, and flew the rest of the angel flight uneventfully. What would have happened if I'd actually taken off with the cover still on? Maybe something unpleasant, maybe not. First, let's do a quick review of what the angle of attack sensor does. It displays the wing's angle of attack. Angle of attack is the angle between the relative wind and the average chord line of the wing. Exceed the critical angle of attack regardless of the airspeed or pitch attitude, and the wing stalls. In the SF-50, an AOA of 1.0 is a stall. 0.6 is the normal approach angle of attack, and if you are at the correct approach speed, your AOA indicator should point at the green donut. Angle of attack is an essential part of the Garmin electronic stability and protection system in the SF-50. It's also known as ESP. There are other inputs to the system than AOA, but we're focusing right now on the AOA vane input. ESP engages when the aircraft exceeds one or more conditions, for example, pitch, roll, VMO, MMO, and or angle of attack beyond the normal flight parameters. Angle of attack protection is built into ESP and the stall warning and protection system, also known as SWPS. The ESP system is active whenever the SF-50 is above 200 feet AGL as determined by the radar altimeter. First, as the AOA gets close to the stall value, the stick shaker will engage, causing the stick to vibrate. When the stall warning and protection system determines the stall warning condition is present or imminent, an oral stall, stall, stall enunciation begins, and the red stall CAS message lights up in the PFD, and the stick pusher applies a nose down force. The stick pusher engages when the AOA is equal to or greater than 1.0 and disengages when the AOA is approximately less than 0.89. Let's say that you left the AOA cover on and nobody saved your bacon by noticing it and letting you know. What's going to happen and how can you deal with it? First, let me say that I have spoken or corresponded with numerous SF-50 pilots about this issue. Some say that the design of the vane cover is such that the vane itself cannot get to the shaker or pusher angle of attack. Others say it can, and there have been reports of pilots having the pusher or shaker go off when the AOA cover was on during flight. For this discussion, let's proceed as though you can get the shaker and or pusher with the AOA cover on. But don't forget that you can have removed the cover and still have an AOA or autoflight system malfunction and get a shaker or pusher at any time. Or, for that matter, a bird strike could damage the AOA vane. Now, if its cute little red cover was left installed during taxi, the AOA vane may be flopping around just like it would if it were not covered, although not to the same degree. But on the ground, the stall warning system is not active, as I noted earlier. Now, during a normal takeoff, the vane will normally streamline as the plane accelerates. But when it's covered, it could still flop between up and down. Let's consider a worst case situation where, under the AOA cover, the vane is tilted far enough to trigger the stick pusher. During the first few seconds of flight, you're going to have a false sense of security as the stall warning system is not active until you exceed 200 feet AGL. Then ESP and the stall warning system become active. Now, 200 feet on most takeoffs, your airspeed is probably 100 knots and increasing, and your pitch attitude is about 10 degrees nose up. Then all of a sudden you hear stall, 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 and you feel the nose pitch down sharply. Things are not going well, to say the least, and you don't have much altitude or time to react. What would you do? Whether the AOA cover is still on or you have a system malfunction does not matter at this point. You need to treat the problem the same way. Fly the airplane. Do the memory items for an automatic flight control system or AFCS malfunction. Immediately grip the stick firmly, then press and hold the big red button, the autopilot disconnect button. Do not let it up. This button disengages the autopilot, yaw damper, auto throttle, throttle friction lock, and flight director, and it interrupts the pitch trim and, most importantly, the stick pusher. Now, we do not yet know if the airplane has stalled and the stall warning and stick pusher activation are correct, or if there's a system malfunction, or we just left the AOA cover on and the vane is moved so as to trigger the shaker or pusher and the plane is not really stalled. But regardless of the underlying cause, we need to treat the airplane as though it is stalled. This is critical. Now, the AFM dictates the following memory items for a stick pusher red CAS warning or activation. 1. AOA, reduce. 2. Thrust lever, takeoff. It says, caution, do not attempt to overpower the stick pusher. And there's a note. If the airspeed, altitude, power settings, and load factors are within normal limits, and there's no evidence of ice contamination, the message should be considered a malfunction. And Diamond says, if the message is determined to be a malfunction, A, grip side stick firmly. B, autopilot disconnect button, press and hold. C, aircraft control, maintain. D, autopilot servos, circuit breaker. A3, pull. And then autopilot disconnect button, release. Now, stall recovery is a fundamental skill in any aircraft. If you reduce the AOA and apply full thrust, the aircraft will recover. Now, if the nose is below the horizon, lower it further. Now, remember from your private pilot ground school that an aircraft can stall in any attitude and at any airspeed. If you've lowered the pitch attitude to reduce the angle of attack, gone to full thrust, and you can now see increasing airspeed, you can safely know that the stall is over. Now, if the stick pusher continues and the aircraft is in an attitude and speed that is a known good flying condition, then the stick pusher, which is triggered by excessive angle of attack, is being fed bad information. So we need to remove power from the stick pusher by pulling circuit breaker A3. Once you've pulled circuit breaker A3, the pusher will stop. If the shaker continues, you can still fly the airplane. The stick shaker circuit is B3 on the pilot side. Pulling the shaker circuit breaker is addressed in the balance of the checklist. Now, this scenario has the pusher firing at 200 feet AGL, but it could happen at any altitude, and that depends on how the vane flops around under the still attached AOA cover, if the cover is still on. If the autopilot is engaged, stick pusher activation will disengage the autopilot. So, you've maintained aircraft control, you've performed the memory items for a stick pusher checklist, you've pulled the A3 circuit breaker, and then you're hand flying for the duration of the flight. Now, I hope you see the seriousness of having a stick pusher activation as low as 200 feet AGL. You have to immediately push the big red button and hold it down. Assume the aircraft is stalled, maintain aircraft control, break the stall, then perform the memory items, the most important of which is pulling circuit breaker A3. Now, I changed my pre-flight inspection to remove the AOA cover as I do my counterclockwise flow around the airplane, and that's about the last thing on the list of items to inspect. If I leave the immediate vicinity of the plane after this pre-flight inspection, I now also do a quick once-over walk around of the plane before I board. I visually check to see that I have the AOA cover on board before I start up, and it's stored in my flight bag just behind my seat. You need to be sure the cover is off before you go, as there's no way that I know of to tell from the AOA vane behavior during taxi that the cover is still installed. Now, one VisionJet pilot modified the AOA cover to hold a flag tall enough to be seen from the left seat. Another pilot uses the technique, lock the door when exiting and Velcro the key inside the AOA cover. So I hope this discussion will help you not join the I forgot the AOA cover club, and also how to deal with an unexpected stick shaker or pusher activation, whether it comes from the AOA cover still being on or a malfunction in the AOA system. I'm David Weeks, and thanks for watching this real-world SF-50 flying video.